Have you ever given everything to a woman, your time, your money, your loyalty, only to watch her walk away anyway? You didn't cheat. You didn't lie. You stayed. You provided. You endured. So why did she still leave? The truth is, it's not because you weren't good enough. It's because somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing what truly mattered to her. You see, a woman doesn't leave for lack of things. She leaves for lack of connection. Carl Jung once said, "The soul cannot be touched by material things." And yet, most of us try to love her with actions while ignoring the one thing she's been aching for all along, your emotional presence. She didn't leave because you didn't earn enough. Not because the house wasn't big enough. Not because the car was old or the vacation stopped. She left because you weren't really there anymore. Yes, your body was present. On the couch, at the dinner table, in the bed beside her. But your soul, your attention, your emotional heartbeat, they were long gone. Most men over 50 are raised to believe that love is about duty. You protect, you provide, you endure. You carry the burden in silence and hope that's enough. But for her, love was never just about provision. It was about presence, about the moments when your eyes said, "I see you," without needing to say a word. Carl Jung once wrote, "What is not made conscious will manifest as fate." And so it did. She didn't want to be possessed or managed. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to be felt, to feel safe enough to unravel without being fixed, to be heard without being solved. But you couldn't give that, not because you didn't care, but because no one ever showed you how. You thought being a good man was enough, but being good is not the same as being present. And love cannot live where presence has died. You thought you were loving her. You showed up. You paid the bills. You fixed what was broken. You gave her everything, your time, your strength, your name. You thought that meant something. You thought that was love. But she didn't feel loved. She felt watched, measured, caged. Not because you were harsh, not because you raised your voice, but because everything you gave her came with a silent weight, an invisible contract, a quiet, unconscious expectation. I give you everything, so you stay, so you reflect me back to myself. But she's not a mirror. She's a woman, with breath, with change, with dreams of her own. Carl Jung called this dynamic projected identity. We fall in love not only with someone else, but with who we become in their eyes. You didn't just love her. You loved the version of yourself she made you feel like. The man who was needed, respected, central, the steady rock in the middle of her life. But when she stopped reflecting that identity, when she began to grow in ways you couldn't control, you felt betrayed, not because she wronged you, but because your sense of self was tied to her response. And here's the hard truth. What you called love was also fear. Fear of being unseen. Fear of being unnecessary. So you gave and gave, not realizing that sometimes giving too much can feel like claiming ownership. That's not cruelty. It's confusion. But it's still the kind of love that leaves no space for her to breathe. You said, "I love you." You said it often, on anniversaries, over dinner, sometimes as a whisper in the dark. But she didn't believe it, not because she thought you were lying, but because she felt something was missing. Women don't hear love with their ears. They feel it, through presence, through energy, through the resonance between what you say and who you are. And when your words and your soul don't match, they know. You said all the right things, but she could sense that you were no longer home inside yourself. You had become hollow, going through motions, checking boxes, living from your head, not your heart. Carl Jung once wrote, "The soul speaks through what is not said." And your silence was screaming. You may have thought you were protecting her by hiding your doubts, your weariness, your quiet collapse, but what she felt was disconnection, not from her, but from the man you used to be. You weren't lying to her. You were lying to yourself, and she could feel it. Women have a deep emotional radar. They know when a man has abandoned his truth, even if he still brings flowers. She didn't need you to be perfect. She needed you to be real. And when you couldn't, bring your true self to the table. The space between you grew colder and colder until the warmth never came back. You were always there. Every time she needed something, you showed up. Every time she called, you answered. You said yes, you made space, you made time. You thought that's what love meant. To never let her feel alone, to never let her struggle, to be dependable, solid, constant. But here's the paradox. The more available you were, the more invisible you became. She stopped missing you because you never gave her the chance to wonder where you were. You were so present that your presence lost its weight. Carl Jung might say, you became a projection of duty, not desire. You thought, if I'm always there, she'll feel safe. But what she really needed was to occasionally feel your absence, not to punish her. Not to play games, but so your presence could mean something again. Every melody needs silence to be music. Every connection needs breath to be real. But you filled every silence. You fixed every pause. And in doing so, you erased the sacred contrast that makes one human miss another. She couldn't long for you, because you never allowed space for longing. She couldn't admire your strength, because she never saw you retreat and return stronger. You didn't mean to disappear, but in trying to always be everything, you became nothing she could feel the absence of, and slowly, she stopped noticing you at all. She didn't need you to argue louder. She didn't need grand speeches or desperate apologies. She needed you to be still, to stop reacting, to stop chasing, to stop proving. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is to say nothing at all. Not out of pride, not out of spite, but out of clarity. Carl Jung said, true communication begins when we no longer need to defend ourselves. You thought silence was weakness, but real silence, the kind born from inner strength, not fear, is a mirror. When you step back, you create a space where her truth can rise, where she's no longer reacting to your energy, but finally feeling her own. Your absence becomes a message. I am no longer dancing in the chaos. I'm no longer feeding what drains me. And that space you create, it forces her to confront something uncomfortable. Either her own avoidance, or the weight of what she's lost in you. Silence isn't about shutting her out. It's about stepping into your own center. It says, I see the storm, but I won't be pulled into it. If you want to meet me in stillness. The truth is when a man goes quiet, not out of withdrawal but wisdom, his energy shifts, and a woman will either rise to meet him or reveal that she never intended to. When she walked away, you thought you lost her, but if you look closer, what truly shattered wasn't just the relationship. It was the image of yourself she once reflected back to you, the version of you she used to admire, the strong one, the protector, the provider, the man she looked at like he mattered. When that gaze disappeared, so did your sense of being someone. And that's the pain no one talks about. It's not just heartbreak, it's identity collapse. Carl Jung called this moment shadow work. It's when the false self, the one built from validation and roles, falls away, and what's left is the real you, the you without applause, the you without titles, the you that was never really seen, not even by yourself. That void you feel, it's not just loneliness, it's the echo of an ego unraveling, and it's terrifying, because without her reflection, you're forced to face something ancient and uncomfortable. Who am I when I am not needed? But here's the truth. This darkness is not your enemy, it is your invitation. Jung believed that we cannot become whole until we face the parts of ourselves we've exiled, the fears, the insecurities, the wounded boy inside the man. That boy didn't just want love. He wanted to feel worthy, and now he's asking you to notice him, not to fix him, not to shame him, but to finally say, I see you, and I'm still here. That is the beginning of true healing, not when she comes back, but when you come back to yourself. If you're still trying to get her back, replaying conversations, rewriting texts, wondering what else you could have done, then brother, you haven't learned the lesson yet. Because the real journey isn't about winning her over, it's about finally meeting yourself. See, true connection doesn't come from pursuit. It comes from presence, and presence only blossoms when you're rooted in your own worth, not looking for someone else to confirm it. You don't need to be chosen to know that you're enough. You don't need her to return to feel like a man again. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and who you truly are is not the man who clings, begs, or waits to be seen. You are the man who sees himself, who claims his value without permission. So stop asking, how do I make her want me again? Start asking, how do I become the kind of man I respect, even when no one's watching?" Because when you arrive at that level of self-respect, something shifts. Your energy changes. You're no longer chasing connection. You're radiating it. And if she ever comes back, it won't be because you convinced her. It will be because you became someone worth walking beside. Not because she completes you, but because she recognizes a man who's already whole. You don't need her to validate you, not when you've finally chosen yourself. That, right there, is the lesson, and some men spend a lifetime never learning it. Let this loss be your beginning, not a tragedy, not a punishment, but a doorway. Because every man who's ever been left has two choices: shrink or rise, cling to what was, or walk toward who he could become. If she comes back, it shouldn't be because you begged, chased, or proved your worth. It should be because you became something real, something grounded, calm, self-led. A man who no longer needs to be validated, because he finally knows who he is. And if she doesn't come back, you still win. Because you've gained the one thing most men never find: your own soul. Carl Jung once said, "Don't hold on to those who wish to leave, so that those who truly belong can find you." There's something powerful about the man who no longer fights to be seen, but simply stands in his truth, who doesn't chase closure, because he is the closure. So breathe deep, let her go in peace. Not to forget her, but to remember you. And when you walk forward from this, do it not with regret, but with reverence, because this was never about her leaving. It was always about you finally returning to the man you were always meant to be.